Greetings bus fans, this is the moving pictures version of the Visions Bus Guide, published annually and listing the 8,500 plus vehicles engaged on TfL contracts in the capital. The layout of this DVD, covering the double deck types, follows a similar pattern to the book, with each group of chassis manufacturers presented alphabetically along with the various body combinations. Within each group it's chronological, so diesels come before hybrids, UK spec buses come before European spec buses, and all the early engine levels are lumped together before the current Euro 6 vehicles. The other arbiter, of course, is length, so we begin at 9.9 metres and work our way up, or more accurately, along. Modern buses are huge, and with each new mechanical development seem to increase their length in 10cm chunks. As a result, the majority are now 2 metres longer than the surviving Routemasters on London's roads, and the new Routemaster is some 3 metres longer. Despite all this increase in bulk, seating capacities don't seem to have increased very much in recent years, but that's a discussion for another day. And there are plenty of fleet books available to provide you with seating details for all the variants listed here. So that's the presentation of the DVD. Let us begin. All the ADLs will be Dennis Tridents of one sort or another, and later developments of this low-floor chassis first fitted with the ALX400 body in 1999. That combination is where we start, in 9.9 metre length. That was 17790 in North Street, Romford, and here's the same garage as 17794 on the 296. Metroline's equivalent is the TA type. London United uses the same TA or Trident Alexander designation, although none of these will last much longer. TA 229 in Richmond on the supposedly single deck 391. Route 57 was due to be taken over by Go-Ahead in July 2016, so TA 37 is also on a short leash. Abellio bought in a batch of these second-hand from Metroline to upgrade Route 172, although upgrade may be stretching it as they are truly horrible. 9837 approaches St Paul's. (9843) from the same Walworth stable provides a weekend overground replacement at Chapel Heath. The 10.5 metre ALX400 Tridents have an extra window in the middle of the top deck and have withstood recent culls better than the shorter vehicles. Stagecoach 17924 at Canning Town. From one of the final batches built in 2006, 18481 in the Drive, Redbridge. The 145 has recently converted to Enviro MMCs, like the 294. (18451) on the 103 at one of the Romford roundabouts. London United's long Tridents have also vanished from the 94 in 2016, so these shots in Bayswater Road of TLA 23 and 25 may now be regarded as archive. (14) of similar type were replaced by Gemini 3 Volvo hybrids in 2016. Since 2015, all over vinyls have drifted across to the LT fleet rather than covering normal buses. One of the exceptions, Stagecoach's 17759, carried this advert for much of last year. Now that Metroline has withdrawn its last Trident presidents, there are only 3 of the type left, and they're all working for Sullivans on North London school contracts. One 9.9 metre that used to belong to Go Ahead, and 2 of Metroline's 10.5s, TPL 926 and 927. As we make this programme, there are still 12 Tridents with the low-line body working for CT Plus every day on the 388. HTL 5 sets off from the stand opposite Blackfriars Station. Further along Queen Victoria Street, HTL 11. The 388 was extended from Hackney Wick across the Olympic Park to Stratford City at the end of 2013. The contract has been extended until 2017. HTL 7 heading east in Bishopsgate. No other London operator has this particular combination of chassis and body, and if you travelled on one, you'll know why. And finally, HTL 11 in Shoreditch. There you go, 4 shots of a type numbering only 12. What value? We once estimated there were more than 1,000 10.1 metre Trident Enviros on London routes before the European spec and Euro 6 models came along. Here's 2 of the originals now, crossing London Bridge. Metroline's collection of original E400s numbers more than 230, plus another 80 acquired from First Group. And they can be found all over North and North West London, as well as in the centre. A surprising number still retain the blue skirt applied when they were new, when operators were allowed a degree of individuality. TE 946 turned short on the 82 at Marble Arch. Arriva North and South ordered 193 of the original combination before European spec came along. A refurbished T169 can now be found working the recently double-decked 368 in East London. Until recently, Enviros were the mainstay of the 341 running from Tottenham Garage. Now you're more likely to find Gemini 2s on the route. T151 heads north in Rosebery Avenue. A significant number reside at South London garages. Here, for instance, is one of Thornton Heath's collection on the 250. Stagecoach has a huge collection of Trident Enviros on both sides of the river. This is one of Barking's, having a day out on Route 5, 19803 at Canning Town. London General's E159 negotiating the streets of Richmond on its regular route. The 13 new buses for the 337 were the last to appear in the grey skirt livery before all red became the rule. E102 was one of a batch of 29 built for Route 345. Around half have now been reallocated to the new garage at River Road, Barking, for the newly acquired 147. Abellio's 9428 is one of 123 Enviros delivered before the new specs. Walworth's allocation can appear on any of the garage's double-deck routes. Epsom's quality line has only a dozen of the original combination for its two main double-deck routes. Another 6 of later specs have joined them. The final operator of the 10.1 metre Enviro is Tower Transit, which inherited a substantial batch when it took over First Group garages. Some of these later went on hire to CT Plus for Route 26, but they've all probably been replaced now by new buses. There is only one London batch of 10.8 metre E400s, and they've been at Bromley Garage for Route 61 since new. That was 19138 in the town centre, and this is 19134 at Bromley Common, unusually showing Bromley South as a destination. The only other Enviro in this length is the original Spirit of London, now running as 19,000. Since a recent refurb, it's been reallocated to Rainham, where it can appear on almost any of the garage's double-deck routes. This is a later working on the 252, with amended graphics and extra silver paint. Moving on, we reach the first of the 10.1 metre E400 hybrids on the Trident chassis, built to UK conformance spec. London United has 20 at Shepherd's Bush for Route 94. Day to day they work alongside a batch of new Volvo B5s, so in theory the route is now 100% hybrid. ADH3 at Marble Arch. Early batches of 5 vehicles each went to Metroline and Go Ahead for evaluation before volume production began. This is TEH 917 before its refurb. All of them are now running around in plain red, without the leaf motif. Go Ahead's batch, EH1-5, mainly worked Route 88 before the LT conversion, and can now be found mainly on the 87. Number 4 shows off the new look, but still without advert panels. For reasons now lost in the mist of time, Go Ahead ordered a batch of 54 Tridents with the Optare Olympus body. With one exception, they've been based at Sutton Garage since new, forming the backbone of routes 93, 154 and 213. The Putney Bridge terminus of the 93. DOE 44 in Stafford Road, Wallington. The Olympi are 20 centimetres longer than the London standard Enviro400 at 10.3 metres. Optare also produced a single deck version for Go Ahead, the SOE type, which operates in similar territory. DOE 17 escapes from Kingston after stopping at Cromwell Road bus station. The 213 starts from the other bus station at Fairfield Road. There is only one other bus of this combination in London, and it belongs to CT Plus. E01 can usually be found on the 388, such as here, entering the City of London at the Bishopsgate. The next combination chronologically were the European spec Enviros of 10.2 metre length. With their introduction, the Trident name was dropped and the standard diesel chassis became known as the E40D. Some creative driving there by White Van Thug. Apart from their numbering, obviously, you can spot the ECs from the rows of amber safety lights along both body sides, although Stagecoach spurned the headlight slots that identify other operators' EC spec Enviros. In this shot you can glimpse the slots on Abellio's 9548 approaching Hammersmith bus station. They serve no function apart from cosmetic styling. The slots, I mean. Go-Ahead's European spec E400s continued in the same number series as the earlier ones. From a batch for New Cross Route 36, this is E259 in Waterloo Road working the 171. The introduction of the Euro 6 emissions standard, with its extra kit in the engine compartment, produced yet another overall length for the Enviros, 10.345 metres, or 10.35 if you're not totally obsessive. Quality Line boosted its collection with a few of these to cover a route gain and PVR increases. DD14 in Kingston. These of course are diesel buses rather than hybrids, and their numbers increased by 31 with the batch ordered by Arriva for its takeover of Route 229. At the same time, Route 492 was upgraded. T326 in Bexley. And further along the same stretch of road, T316 on the 229. By this time, the all-new Enviro400 MMC had been available for a year, but this batch were built to the now so-called classic Enviro design. Their introduction also coincided with Arriva London taking over the Kent Thameside operation. Otherwise, they would all have been 6,000 and something rather than T300s. The 10.2 metre E400 to EC spec boosted hybrid numbers considerably. London United, for instance, added to its original 22 with the Route 27 conversion at the end of 2012. ADH40 in Hammersmith Road. All these are based at Stamford Brook Garage, where they've been joined by the pilot scheme pair, ADH1 and 2. First Centre West ordered a batch of 22 for another Route 23 upgrade. They were later taken over by Tower Transit in the Westbourne Park acquisition. From the same group, DNH 39123 in Queen Victoria Street, on diversion via Blackfriars. Abellio ordered a number of batches for routes based at Battersea and Walworth. 2425 originally worked on Route 3, but was displaced from one garage to the other by the LT conversion. Metroline's Enviro hybrids of whatever spec are all based at Cricklewood for the central London routes, even if some of them run out a considerable distance. The LT conversion of Route 15 displaced Stagecoach's EC spec hybrids from Bow to Leighton, where they now work Route 56. Here's two of them in Essex Road. The Euro 6 hybrid equivalent is also 10.35 metres, and a huge number were taken in by Stagecoach in the early months of 2015. 12314 was one of the batch ordered for the upgrade of Route 205 at contract renewal. They often stray onto Bow Garage's other non-LT route, the 277. This is 12325 near Billingsgate Market. On a Sunday, I've no doubt. Which is why 12330 appears soon after. Such substitutions can also happen on weekdays, providing some relief from the unloved Omni-Cities. The Enviro400 MMC also comes in diesel and hybrid versions. Both are 10.4 metres. This is one of the Stagecoach diesels based at North Street, identified by its number in the 10,000 series. The most recent batch have gone to Barking for the 145 and 62. This is 10327 in Redbridge. If you're planning to track them all down, take sandwiches, because they can appear on any of Barking's double-deck routes and it can be a very long job. (10316) at Chapel Heath's on the correct 62, a route upgraded from single deck at the contract renewal in April 2016. (10308) in the opposite direction. With this latest influx, Stagecoach's collection of the combination rose to 47 vehicles, and a few more are due shortly. The hybrid version of the MMC has been ordered by Abellio, Metroline and most recently Go Ahead. Abellio's 2532 was one of a small batch for the newly acquired 415. A much larger group of 27 went to Baddington Garage for the takeover of Route 109 at the start of 2015. 2497 on Streatham Hill. (21) of this combination were delivered to Camberwell Garage in April 2016 for routes 35 and 40. EH60 approaches Borough Station. Day to day, the Camberwell MMCs work as a common user pool, with the Volvo MCV EvoSetis appearing later. EH39 turns out of Fenchurch Street at the start of a Route 40 journey. Chronologically, Metroline's MMC hybrids followed the Abellio buses, a small batch of 16 for Route 332, which rarely stray and haven't been added to since. TEH 2086 skirting the Crossrail work at Paddington. Rounding off the extensive Alexander Dennis combinations, we have the Enviro400H City and the Virtually Electric. Essentially, the City is an MMC with a London look body. The initial batch of 19 went to Arriva for Route 78. HA12 turns into Goodman's Yard. Like the MMCs, these are also 10.4 metres. HA1 at Tower Bridge. The 19 vehicles converted Route 78 in its entirety, but they also appear occasionally on the 106 and, in extremis, the 254. HA4 crossing Tower Bridge. CT Plus is currently taking delivery of the second batch of these for Route 26. The final development of the MMC, for the moment, is the virtual electric, which is both a hybrid with a diesel engine, a straight electric with a plug, and is capable of wireless charging at bus stations. There are 3 currently operated by Tower Transit on Route 69. DH38502 arrives at Canning Town, where it can pick up a boost charge from the induction plates embedded in the tarmac. There's a similar arrangement at Walthamstow bus station, the northern terminus of the route. This is all experimental at present as part of the Europe-wide ZEUS project, short for Zero Emission Urban Bus System. But you may see a lot more of this in London in the future, because it's all so clean and green. Speaking of which, the fully electric double-decker with garage charged batteries shipped in from China at the end of 2015 for trials on Metroline Route 98. BYD 1474 is at the Russell Square stand. There should be 5 of these initially, but their weight will need to be addressed before they can operate in any volume. At present they have a special dispensation as they considerably exceed the EU weight limit for a 2-axle bus. As you will appreciate from the exuberant application of leaf motif, they're quite hard to miss. London's first low-floor double-decker, the DAF DB250 with ALX400 body, hit the streets in 1998, but now they're all gone, apart from a small rump in the far north. These 10.3 metre buses were once numbered in the Arriva Shire's 6000 series, but have recently become DLAs like their central London counterparts. They appear on 3 routes in the Watford to Harrow area, like the 340. DLA 622, formerly 6022, at Stonegrove near Edgware on the 142. At 14 years old, even these later examples of the DAF DB250 won't be around for much longer. Sometime after the first ALX 400s, DB250s appeared with 10.3 metre right pulsar bodies, operating mostly from Arriva's South London garages. DW41 turns opposite the Fairfield Halls in Croydon. DW130, now withdrawn from Brixton Garage like all the others there, at Streatham Hill on Route 50. Again, there are a handful in the far north, but the bulk of the survivors are still at South Croydon. DW40 in Brighton Road Purley on the 466, and DW104 on Route 60. This combination may be extinct by the end of 2016. All the Gemini 2 DLs, built by Wrights with VDL chassis components, are 10.4 metres, and a huge chunk of the early ones were ordered as bendy bus replacements on Route 38. Around a dozen were later farmed out to Greys and renumbered in the 6000 series, but they've now reverted to their original DW numbers. 6209 in London Road, West Thurrock, is DW209 again. The out-of-sequence 6220 has reverted to DW213. This is Romford Library. From Tottenham's vast collection of the type, DW305 turning into New Fetter Lane at Holborn Circus while working the 341. Running east from Holborn, DW214, a Clapton resident since new, but now with only the 242 to occupy its time. Arriva's EC-spec Gemini 2 DLs start at DW401, and the majority operate in North London. This is DW446 in Essex Road. A small number of former wood green vehicles have migrated to South Croydon, like DW507, here working Route 60 along the High Street. DW467, one of Tottenham's collection, heading back north in Theobald Road. The wood green DW4s originally replaced bendy buses on Route 29, but now mostly work the 144 and 141 from the same garage. DW491 in City Road. A later batch of 23 went new to Enfield Garage for the contract renewal of Route 121. DW570 sets off from the Island Village. And next up, the Gemini 2DL, which isn't. DW411 was fitted with a Euro 6 Mercedes engine at the start of 2014 as a test bed for the forthcoming street deck design. Once teething troubles had been addressed, it worked Enfield routes with super reliability in the first 9 months of 2015, but it's become much more intermittent since then. During its conversion, the length increased to 10.6 metres, and as such, it remains unique. The many different combinations of Scania vehicles have declined sharply in recent years, but there's still plenty to get your head around. This, for instance, is an N94 Omni-Decker 10.6 metre, working for London United from Fulwell Garage. Another full-well bus has a day out on the 65, although Omni Cities are the weekday norm. The climb to Richmond bus station. You can also find them in the far north on Edgware's Route 292. This is the A1 Barnet Bypass. There's a small batch of the East Lancs bodied N94s at Orpington, but all Scanias are under threat there since the garage was absorbed into the London General operating licence. The same bus, 933, at Bromley Common on the lengthy 320. This one was withdrawn in February 2016. The CN94 OmniCity 10.7 metre is shorter than the integral OmniCity, appearing shortly. All can be found in the Hounslow area. SP7, now SP40007 on Route 120. Stablemate SP15, ditto numbering wise, leaving the other side of Hounslow bus station on the 111. SP13, dida-dida-dida, arrives from Southall on the H32. And if there's still any doubt about a common user arrangement existing at Hounslow's main garage, here's SP15 on the normally all Enviro 222. The N230UD OmniCity, latterly built in Poland, weighs in at 10.8 metres and forms the bulk of London United's fleet. SP98 in Richmond demonstrates the usual motive power of Route 65. SP132 on the 65. By the time you find these, they will all be SP400 something. You will also find they have much better seats than the stagecoach ones. The London Sovereign buses at Edgware were separated for a time, but they and the London United collection are now back under a single banner as RATP-Dev of London. SP69 in Harrow, also on the 183. Some of the stagecoach collection were once the mainstay of Route 205 at Bow, but they're now outnumbered by the Enviro Euro 6 hybrid shown earlier. Rainham Garage still has a sizable number, and they have total charge of Route 248. 15017 in Romford. They also appear on Rainham's 174. This is 15029 in Main Road, Gidea Park. There's still a small batch with CT Plus at Ash Grove. SD4, a regular on the 212 before the route was lost, can now be found on the 388. The East Lancs Omni-Decker on the N230 chassis is another former Metrobus variant taken over by London General. 952 in London Road, south of Merstham, on the Red Hill bound 405, is based at Beddington Croydon. Garage mate 947 in London Road, Red Hill, has almost completed the long trek from West Croydon. .947 in Purley, a famous place apparently, and surprisingly bus heavy for out of town. The third variant on the N230 chassis is the Optare Olympus, shown earlier in the ADL section. Now relettered in standard London General Yellow, they're almost indistinguishable from the Trident batch at Sutton. 880 moves off from Croydon Library. .879 in Addington Road, Coney Hall, he is working the 353 from Orpington Garage. Meanwhile, back in the northwest, Metroline's buses have been displaced from Route 7 by another batch of hybrids. They now work other Perivale routes, like the 79 and the 297, SEL 747 in Perivale. Followed rapidly by SEL 763, rounding off the surviving Scania combinations. We wind backwards to the 10.1 metre ALX 400 body to kick off the Volvo B7 variants. Arriva's 6115 will soon revert to VLA 115, the number it carried when based at Norwood. A Route 370 working in West Thurrock. 6176 VLA 176 in Harrow on the 340, one of the Garston routes on which the DB250s appeared earlier. Still running as 6167 on the 14th of June 2016 at 2:30 in the afternoon, the soon-to-be VLA 167 at Stonegrove on Garston's 142. VLA 108 in Romford on the 128, operated by Arriva Barking. VLA 125 approaching the North Street roundabout in Romford. And VLA 139 at Chadwell Heath, completing Arriva's short Volvos. The early 10.6 metre vehicles, starting at VLA 1, were once based at Norwood, but many have now moved north of the river. One of the stragglers, VLA 23, on Route 2 at Marble Arch. At the bottom end of Park Lane, VLA 24 passes the Hyde Park Hilton. The remaining B7s at Norwood now mostly appear on the 417, as the 2 has almost been upgraded with Gemini 2s. DLA 37 in leafy Streatham Hill. Followed by VLA 45 passing Arriva's Brixton garage. Despite withdrawals, sizable groups of 10-metre precedents remain at Metroline garages in the northwest. This is Harrow Weald's VP530 heading for Heathrow. VP472 at Brent Cross on the 182. And from a slightly different vantage point, another 182. Holloway's VPs will be the next to go, thanks to another cascade after the Route 91 LT conversion, but you may still find the odd one on routes 4 and 17. VP513 at High Holborn. Wilson's substantial collection stubbornly clings on to Route 98, despite the influx of hybrid and electric technology. VP567 in Oxford Street. South of the river, less than half of Go-Ahead's presidents remain. PVL354 is a long-standing New Cross resident, and here appears on the 321 in Lewisham. PVL328 has been at Camberwell for a long time and most frequently appears on the 45 and 468. The same can be said for PVL318, the recently revamped Elephant and Castle. Finally, PVL412 on the 118, formerly of New Cross, now of Merton. To avoid confusion with Metroline, London Sovereign called its 10.6 metre Volvo Presidents VLPs. So here's VLP23 going west on the 114 at Harrow. The more common VPL of Metroline, represented here by 602 at St Paul's. Another one on the 17 at London Bridge. Refer to earlier comments about Holloway's presidents. By way of a change, VPL 587 passing the Bank of England on the 43, now something of a rarity. The Gemini-bodied Volvo B7 also comes in 2 lengths, and we start with the sizable collection operated by Tower from Westbourne Park. BMW 32367 has just passed the garage. 32424 arrives at Golders Green, the 328's northern terminus. Although not a hybrid, and although not remotely Euro 6, the type continues to appear regularly on Route 23, the NW 32396 at Marble Arch. There have only been a handful of withdrawals from Go-Ahead's South London collection, originally numbering 273. Camberwell's Weevil 253 has just passed St George's Circus on its way to Blackfriars. Further along the 45's route, Weevil 259 crosses Holborn Circus on its way to King's Cross. Putney Garage also has a big collection of this combination, but their age is now against them and they will start to go soon. From a later batch, this is a repainted Weevil 154 emerging from the Kingston one-way system. Arriva maintains a number of the type in North London. Here, for instance, is Clapton's VLW 127 turning into Proctor Street on a 242 working to Homerton. And finally, a cascaded VLW 129, now in stock at Garston, working the 258. The 10.6 metre Volvo Gemini can also be found with 3 different operators. Belvedere's VWL17 in the nice part of Greenwich. The other half of Go Ahead's VWLs are based at Mandela Way for Route 1. Number 29 turns into Kingsway at the start of a southbound journey. Many of these are now 14 years old as well, so the clock is ticking again. Abellio has around 70 of this combination, based at Walworth and Beddington. 9054, heading south on the 188. (9069), near the end of its journey, passes Holborn Station. At the other end of the Abellio map, 9031 is based at Beddington for Route 157. Here it's Morden bound at Wallington. Arriva's long Geminis are based at Ash Grove for the 253 and also at Wood Green. From the former, VLW 196 at the Stamford Hill crossroads. Only London United has the East Lancs Millennium Viking 10.4 metre on the Volvo B7 chassis, and this small batch have been on their travels recently. Once based at Shepherd's Bush, some moved north when Route 49 was lost and can now be found mostly on the 114. For the benefit of nostalgics, here's VE6 on the 49 in Kensington High Street. Those that didn't move north moved south to Tulworth and have kept busy on Route 57. However, they will probably go when London General takes over the route later this year. Here's another one, VE8 in Streatham Hill. Only London United has the East Lancs Millennium Viking 11 metre on the Volvo B7. The former London Sovereign VLEs, which you're looking at here, have either been withdrawn or are transferred to join others at Tolworth. Some that have moved south are currently appearing on the 57, so earlier comments probably apply to these too, although both the VEs and the VLEs are only 12 years old. Moving towards more modern kit, we reach the Gemini 2 10.4 metre bus mounted on the Volvo B9 chassis, known to some as growlers because of their engine note. The tower inherited 65 from First Group and continues to use them on the tortuous 25. VN 36119 in Oxford Street. 36163 passing Chancery Lane Underground Station in High Holborn. Metroline has a sizable number 2 in several dedicated batches. From the Brentford allocation, this is VW1061 on the 237 in Hounslow. Go-Ahead's Volvo B9 weevils carry straight-on numbering wires from the earlier Volvo B7s. From the first batch from Route 21, this is Weevil 291 near Lewisham. Go-Ahead also inherited First Group buses when it bought Northumberland Park Garage, and it renumbered them as WVNs. The first of them in Essex Road on their regular route 476. From the dedicated batch for the East London transit routes, here's Weevil 344 and 340 leaving and approaching the Dagenham Dock terminus of the EL2. Moving on, we come to exactly the same combination built to EC spec, starting with VW1370 at Golders Green, one of a batch delivered new to Holloway when Metroline won back Route 24. A mixture of diesel buses and hybrids were ordered for the contract renewal of Route 52. Willesden's VW1407 near Journey's End in Grosvenor Place. The tower buses were formerly with First Centre West and arrived in several batches. VN 37984, for instance, was the last of 33 for a Route 23 upgrade in 2012. From the same batch, VN 37962 leaves Brent Cross on the 266 working to Hammersmith. Go-Ahead's Volvo B9s from Route 19 were transferred to Northumberland Park in 2015 to make some space at Stockwell, but they continue as before. Weevil 482 approaches the Gray's Inn stop in Theobald's Road. The final Volvo B9 combination is the 3 buses built with Enviro bodies in 2008 to gain early running experience with the revamped chassis. They're a strange length for an Enviro at 10.4 metres. BE3 begins another journey from Kingston Hall Road. Since new, they've hardly ever strayed from the 85, but London United is due to take over that route in July 2016. BE3 pulls away from the Green Man on Putney Heath. And so to the hybrid Gemini 2s on the Volvo B5 chassis. There are now lots of these in various forms, but here's one of the pilot group, Arriva's HV2 at St Paul's on the 76, a route they've worked daily since new. They often appear on Tottenham's other numbers, especially at weekends. HV4 in Bishopsgate on the 149. Meanwhile, back at St Paul's, HV14 pulls away. This is one of 20 for the 76, ordered about a year after the initial half dozen, and you can see they now have the proper revamped Gemini 2 front instead of the old front on the original 6. HV18 on a northbound diversion in New Fetter Lane. Go-Ahead's vehicles are identical apart from lettering and seat covers and have a very similar numbering sequence. WHV12 in Vauxhall Bridge Road, a recent transfer to Camberwell to convert the 436 fully to hybrids. WHV1 southbound at the same spot. The 16 in this batch went new to Camberwell for Route 12 but were displaced by LTs in the spring of 2015. The Euro 6 versions, the B5 Gemini, look the same outwardly, but are 10 centimetres longer at 10.5 metres. From Wilson's batch for the 52, this is VWH1416 in Kensington. Go-Ahead's second batch of 15 were all built to EC spec and went new to Stockwell when London General won Route 19 from Arriva. A brace in Rosebery Avenue. Arriva added to its collection with substantial batches for the 73, 29 and then the 319, but the latter mostly ended up on the 59 until it was converted to LTs. LTs also displaced the 73's Volvo hybrids to other routes, starting with the 253 and then the 141. HV62 had the B of E. When it was independent, London Sovereign ordered 23 for the contract renewal of Route 13. The 23rd bus begins another journey from Aldwych. Euro 6, Gemini 3, but still Volvo B5. This stopgap version of the Gemini has a cut-down top deck, similar to the LT, aimed at saving weight by reducing the glass area. Stagecoach surprised everyone by ordering 32 for an upgrade of Route 53 at Plumstead. Since 2015, the route has been cut back to Lambeth North and no longer reaches Whitehall. Metroline took in 34 of this revised combination for an upgrade of Route 6 at contract renewal and partially Route 98. So here's one on the 52. VWH2092 sets off from Victoria. Route 6 was totally converted with the time, so make a note if you see anything else. VWH2098 passes Trafalgar Square. Before the 6, Route 7 was fully upgraded with a similar batch of 23, as were routes 34 and 125 at contract renewal. VWH2017 heads northwest at Marble Arch. The London United half of RATP took in 2 batches totalling 29 in 2015 for new contracts on routes 285 and 116. All are based at Hounslow Heath. VH34 completes another flight from Heathrow at Kingston Bus Station. And finally, in what has now become a fairly substantial stopgap category, the B5 Gemini 3 Euro 6s of Tower Transit. 12 of them ordered for the takeover of Route 212 in the spring of 2015. Coming right up to date, this is the Volvo B5 Gemini 3 as a street deck lookalike. Essentially the same bus as the last group, but with the restyled front and back panels. Go-Ahead ordered a batch of 40, which now form a common user pool at Croydon Garage for routes 119 and 202, although recently they've started to creep onto others, like the 64 and 405. WHV70 at Coney Hall. Following straight on came an order for another 24 for Route 155's new contract at Merton, plus another 6 for the 93 at Sutton. WHV 96 at the Elephant. London United has recently taken in 14 to replace ageing Tridents on the 94. Showing off the new numbering scheme, this is VH45156, setting off from Acton Green. The Volvo B5 hybrid has been hugely successful, and it's fair to say that everybody wants it under their buses. Hence several batches of Enviro400 MMC so equipped. Go-Ahead's EHV 11 and 12 in Bishopsgate from a batch of 16 for Route 135. EHV 9 heads for Old Street. The Docklands operation at Silvertown won this route from Arriva in 2015. Not a million miles away, you can find a similar batch of 21 dedicated to Stagecoach's Route 47, based at Catford. 13102 begins its journey from Liverpool Street bus station. (13091) in Wormwood Street. The route was cut back in 2015 from its former terminus at Shoreditch. The latest bus body to be married to the Volvo B5 hybrid is the MCV EvoSeti, built in Egypt. Go-Ahead has started the ball rolling with an order for 20, linked to the contract gains of routes 35 and 40. MHV 6 in Newington Causeway. MHV 14 heads in the opposite direction across the remodelled Elephant and Castle roundabout, which is no longer a roundabout. MHV 5 at Borough. Strictly speaking, the EvoSetis were ordered for Route 40 and the Enviro MMCs for the 35, but since the day of conversion they've operated as a common user pool for both routes. And Enviro follows on to prove the point. MHV 17 heading south on Route 40. At around the same time, EvoSetis also began to appear in central London on Golden Tours sightseeing work. But we don't talk about sightseeing buses. A brace of EvoSetis on London Bridge. MHV 9 on the 40. Followed by MHV 1 on the 35. At present there are another 65 of this combination on order for route conversions later in the year. To round off the extensive Volvo chassis review, here's the B5TL Euro 6 diesel bus with the interim Gemini 3 body. Two of these were supplied to Arriva and Metroline for running trials in 2014, but they've since been taken on by Go-Ahead and allocated to Croydon Garage. Weevil 510 and 509, as they have now become, pass each other in Red Hill while working the 405. 509 returns to West Croydon. This one used to be Arriva's VGD1 on paper, but the number was never carried. The other one, Weevil 510, used to be Metroline's VW1469. By the way, if you're planning to travel on either of them, take a cushion with you. 509 reappears in Purley, showing off its liking for the 405. Previously, Wright's bought in chassis components from DAF BDL or complete chassis from Volvo for its bus bodies. The new Routemaster is the first wholly Wright bus product with a purpose-built chassis from a new plant in County Antrim. The cosmetic design of the NRM, of course, is the work of Heatherwick Studios, but Wright Bus developed the engineering in conjunction with numerous subcontractors. It would serve no purpose here to run through the entire history of the LT conversions. Suffice to say that all of the vehicles in this opening section have Euro 5 spec engines, and both they and the follow-on Euro 6s have all been 11.3 metres in length. LT52 in Queen Victoria Street on Route 11, one of the early high-profile targets for the new type, and about the only one which still has customer assistance on the rear platform 7 days a week. London United's LT70 on Route 9 and LT84 on Route 10 near Hammersmith. The mighty 38, with a peak vehicle requirement of 59, is still mostly crewed, but not on Sundays, I believe. LT234 passes Gray's Inn. LT181 in Essex Road passes a garage mate, heading towards Clapton. LT243 approaches the terminus of Route 15 beneath Blackwall DLR station before starting work. There are two batches at Bow Garage. They converted Route 8 in 2014 and the 15 a year later. One of an incalculable number of all-over advertising vinyls applied to the new Routemasters. London United's LT159 is obliquely promoting Switzerland. And finally, Euro 5-wise, one of the crunchy buses, LT120 at Marble Arch. Evaluation vehicles with Euro 6 spec engines first appeared in 2014, divided between the existing operators at the time to gain running experience before volume production. Although there were some gaps, Euro 6 entered service in numbers from around LT273. Since the start of 2015, all have been built with the uprated kit. The next change from the original spec involves some vehicles in the batches for Route 73 having a sliding leaf door at the back rather than the inward opening arrangement. A change applied to all subsequent batches, including those for the 149 conversion. And why is that? Because the customer assistant concept with the semi-permanent open rear platform has been well and truly consigned to the seemed like a good idea at the time file. LT747 in Kingsway on the 91. Finally, for the sake of completeness, a Euro 6 LT with leaf door in advertising vinyl. LT605 promoting the Monster Jobs Agency. However, that isn't quite the end of the story, because turning restrictions on a number of routes penciled in for LT conversion prompted the short NRM concept, which so far extends, or perhaps doesn't extend, to only a single vehicle. ST812. This one-off variant entered service in May 2016 as part of the Route 91 conversion for Metroline, and it remains to be seen whether any of the follow-on order, taking the new Routemasters up to LT1000, will be built to this 10.2 metre format. Apart from the loss of one seating bay on both decks, there appears to be no difference between ST812 and the other 780 new Routemasters at time of writing. Like all the recent standard vehicles, this one is also Euro 6, obviously, and has the leaf slider at the back. The other right bus double deck chassis and body combination so far is the newly released street deck, which hasn't yet reached London routes in volume, unlike other parts of the UK. However, there are two trials vehicles running around, one with Arriva at Garston, and this, Go-Ahead's WSD1, currently working Bexley Heath routes. This is the full-blown street deck mechanically with Mercedes Euro 6 engine, even though it looks like the interim Gemini 3. And finally, the combination that defies alphabetical order. The classic Routemaster, a Park Royal body on AEC subframes, overall length 8.372 metres or 27 foot 6. A batch of 10 continue to appear, 5 of them each day, on the Heritage 15 operated by Stagecoach from West Ham Garage. A refurbishment programme has recently begun, which aims to return the vehicles to near original cosmetic condition, even if their mechanicals have been mucked about beyond redemption. These days the 15H runs between Charing Cross and Tower Hill at a 20-minute frequency, but 7 days a week. And that was the moving pictures version of the Visions bus guide. We might do single deckers next, and garages, and a programme on the operators possibly, and maybe a whole DVD on oyster fares and concessionary passes. Well, why not? They're all in the bus guide.